Yo, what's going on YouTube, and welcome to Goal Line Hockey. It's Kevin Forte, and today we are taking a look at the Anaheim Ducks goaltender. There seems to be a little bit of a dilemma and a little bit of drama brewing up in Anaheim. We're going to take a look at Lucas Dostal. We're going to take a look at John Gibson, and maybe seeing a trade for one of the Ducks goaltenders. We're going to take a look at that today, where I think they might go. We're going to go over all that. So, there's been a lot of reports out there that John Gibson throughout the season was not happy in Anaheim, and this is now becoming a bit of a theme. This year, last year, he's obviously not liking the rebuild, and I can't blame him. He's a really good goaltender. This is a guy that prides himself on his game, right? He is an elite goaltender. He's well regarded around the league, and his numbers this season were well below the standard of what we expect from John Gibson. Now, you look at his career numbers. He's played in over 400 games in the league. He's got 180 wins. He has got a 2.83 goals against average and a 912 save percentage. You look at this season's numbers, though, just this season alone, his numbers are really not good. 53 games for the Ducks. He only had 14 wins this year. He had a 4 goals against average, 3.99 goals against average. That is basically 4 goals a game, which is well above his normal 2.83, and also his save percentage below 900 at .899. So really tough season for John Gibson, and it's kind of indicative of maybe seeing something maybe transpire here this offseason. So you look at his numbers. These are the lowest numbers we have seen for John Gibson in his entire career. Now, what's interesting about Gibson's situation, as since the 2013-14 season, his numbers have continued to decline, which is kind of interesting. So his first 3 games in the NHL, he won a .954 save percentage in his first season in Anaheim in the 2014 season, but he was 20 years old then, so again, 3 games, very small sample size. The next season, his first full season, he had 23 games with the Ducks, a .914 save percentage. The season following that, a .920 save percentage, a .924, and his best season, which is the 2017-18 season, he played 60 games for the Ducks, 31 wins, a .926 save percentage, and a 2.43 goals against average. So you look at his numbers that season. He also was an all-star for 4 straight seasons that year. So to say the least, there was a lot of conversations about John Gibson really between 2015 to 2019. And there is a strong correlation there because that also happens to be the Ducks' success run. That was their time where they were going to the playoffs. They were doing everything they did. It was during that time. Then we start to see things drop off. 2018, 2019, and then 2019, 2020. Then we start to see the dip of John Gibson. His numbers start to go down. He starts to go between a .904, a .903, a .904, and an .899. This year, his numbers really started to take a dip, really since 2019. And like I said, there is a correlation between the Ducks and missing the playoffs, absolutely. But just in general, he has not been the same goaltender. Now, leads us to the conversation of, with his numbers, does that lead to a trade, and why? So Lucas Dostal, if you haven't heard his name much, he is a Czech Republic, 22-year-old goaltender, 6'2", 191 pounds, a third-round pick of the Ducks back in 2018. He's on the final year of his entry-level contract. He'll be up for a new deal this summer. And the expectation is the Ducks will be looking to him as their starting goaltender as soon as next season. Now, you look at his numbers, they haven't been all that great. You look at really since 2020 in the Liga, he had a .928, a .941 the last 2 years in Liga. He had a .916 with the San Diego Gulls in 2020. And he had some really good numbers in San Diego this year. He had some good numbers, a .912, a .944, a .914 save percentage. He's had some good numbers at the AHL and Liga levels. But in the NHL, in a small sample size, only 23 games the last 2 seasons. He had a .907 save percentage last year and a .901 save percentage in 19 games this season. So his numbers are kind of, they're good, but they're not anything spectacular. But maybe with a little more experience and, let's be honest, a better team in front of him, we might start to see those numbers get better and improve for Lucas Dostal as his experience and development continues. So the way I look at Dostal right now, he's already got 2 years of NHL experience. It's not like this is something new for him. But he has only played 23 games, and if you trade Gibson now, there is the sense that, well, now you just kind of feed him to the Wolves. He'll probably be getting 30 to 40 starts next season, just depending on who the backup is. That's a lot of pressure on a young goalie like that. So that brings up the conversation, well, if the Ducks do trade Gibson, and let's be honest, that's who they'd probably go with, right? Gibson's already 29 years old. He's probably looking to win a Stanley Cup now, and probably by the time that deal is over in 2027, he's probably going to be looking at more of a 1B position where he's not even a starter at that point, right? So the way I look at Gibson right now, his contract is another 4 seasons, making $6.4 million per season. He has a modified no-trade clause, which you absolutely have to consider in this conversation. That kicked in the 3rd year of his contract. He's currently in the 6th year of his 8-year deal that he signed with Bob Murray back in 2018. $6.4 million per season, and it's a base salary contract. So it's $6.4 million between now and the rest of his deal. So there's no weird, all of a sudden it's 8.2 one season and 2.1 million on the final year. None of that. 6.4 million through the entire deal. Now, it's a 10-team no-trade list for John Gibson, which you also have to factor here. So the way I look at this contract is this is a guy that, if I'm being honest, for the Ducks, probably not for the long-term future, right? You look at Dostal's already in the NHL, getting some experience here in North America. It does make Gibson expendable. Now comes the options of where could Gibson go. With a contract like that, it is very movable. I definitely think teams will be interested. So teams that could be in the running. Now I look at a team like the LA Kings. They need a goaltender, specifically a guy like Gibson. I just don't see them going to make a trade for a guy like Gibson. And the reason for that is it's the Ducks' biggest rival, right? The Ducks and the Kings aren't going to make some massive trade here. I just don't see it. So then who else is on the list? The Pittsburgh Penguins come to mind. Now what's really interesting about the Pittsburgh Penguins is he is from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So there's been a strong correlation for the past 2 years that we could maybe see John Gibson go to Pittsburgh. And with the new staff there in Pittsburgh, maybe Kyle Dubas coming in, things like that, there's definitely a reason to believe that that could be a move to be had in Pittsburgh. Could they go after a guy like John Gibson? I definitely think there's a strong correlation there. I would, honestly, even though I don't like Pittsburgh, I'd love to see Gibson go to his hometown team. That is the thing that the Penguins need most, is a strong goaltender. We've seen the Ducks and the Penguins make some trades in the past. This is nothing new. I think there's really something to be said for that. I think this is a really good match. The only problem is for the Penguins is what assets could they really give up to Anaheim, right? Would it be like Owen Pickering and maybe one of those young defensemen like Pierre-Olivier Joseph and a first-round pick? That's probably what you're looking at here. And even if that's the deal, I don't even know if that's enough. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. Now, what are some other teams? The Ottawa Senators really come to mind. They want the goaltender, right? But you also wonder if, with their current situation, do they look to just go for the big fish? And they could definitely do that. I could see them doing that. Buffalo's an interesting one. If they decide to trade a guy like UPL and you decide to go with Devin Levi and John Gibson next year, that could be a really good tandem in Buffalo. That's something to watch for. The New Jersey Devils come to mind. I think the Devils will be looking for a goaltender. There's been a lot of talk. They're looking at Hellebuck. Why not look at Gibson? I think the Devils also, like the Senators and the Sabres, have the assets to get that deal done. So Pittsburgh seems like a good fit. They just don't have the assets that these other teams have. I think it's going to be really interesting. I think it's going to come down to those 4 teams. I think the Devils, the Sabres, the Senators, and the Penguins are going to be your 4 finalists for John Gibson. But I want to know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Where do you guys think John Gibson could get traded? A lot of teams with a lot of assets. Leave some mock trades down below for where you think Gibson could go. Guys, as always, thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you again next time.